If you have absolutely zero gym equipment, or even just a little bit like some light dumbbells or a pull-up bar, can you still get the same muscle gains and growth compared to someone who has access to a complete gym? The answer is yes, absolutely. You just have to be a bit more creative if you don't have access to all of the stuff that I have. And by the way, welcome to TFitX. I'm Tyler, a certified personal trainer and a registered nurse. And I'm gonna help you guys how to gain the most amount of muscle with the least amount of equipment. So we're gonna go body part by body part, and we're gonna start with the upper body. And the most classic exercise that everyone knows is the push-up. This is gonna work our chest, shoulders, and our triceps. The problem with the push-up though, is that people can easily, after you do these for a while, start doing like 30 plus reps in a single set. And studies show that for muscle growth, we need to be close to failure around between the 5 to 30 rep range. So if you're doing 40 and 50 reps and you're not at failure, you're not maximizing muscle growth. So the big thing with push-ups is you need to find ways to make them harder, basically. So one of the first things you can do is you can elevate your feet. So put your feet up on something like a chair or a couch and then do your push-ups. This is going to basically make you feel heavier because of the way gravity has shifted with the new angle. It's also gonna make you target your upper chest a little bit more, which for aesthetic purposes is usually what people want anyways. Another favorite of mine is something that I do regularly, even if I do have full access to a gym, is doing deficit push-ups. So you can get like 2 large books. I've got just some rubber weights here. Elevate your feet or elevate your hands here, allowing you to sit and sink even deeper here. So if you've got 2 really tall things and you have a good range of motion, you can get really deep. And studies show that when we get deep in a full range of motion, that big stretch, that is actually what really stimulates muscle growth and hypertrophy. And then if you have some light resistance bands, you can wrap this around you and do a push-up. It'd be a little bit weird to get into it because it likes to move around here. But basically, when you go down, it's lighter. And as we extend, it gets harder once you get to the top. Really good for building strength. And then of course, you can combine these modalities. You could do feet elevated, deficit, and a band once you get really strong. And then one final note for the push-ups is gonna be our hand position. If you wanna target more your triceps, a close grip or even a diamond grip is going to be mostly our triceps. And then to isolate more your chest, a big wide grip is going to hit that. Now, if you happen to have a bench and some light dumbbells, another thing that we can do to isolate our chest is some dumbbell flies. You can do these with resistance bands as well. But if you only have light dumbbells, one thing you might need to do that might help would be to superset your push-ups with your flies, where you go straight from doing push-ups and immediately with no rest into doing flies. That way you can work close to failure, because that is kind of the whole goal. And that's what's so hard about working out at home, is because we don't have heavy weights to where we can work to failure, because all the studies show to maximize muscle growth, you have to get close to failure. Now let's talk about how to isolate our shoulders. So now that all the blood has rushed to my face and it's even more red than it normally is, as you can tell, doing a handstand style push-up is very difficult, but it is a good way to target the front delts. Although you probably don't need to really worry about something like this, because doing push-ups is going to target that plenty. So in terms of targeting specifically the shoulder area, this is where it's really nice to have some light dumbbells or even some resistance bands to target our lateral and rear delts. So from an aesthetic purpose, the lateral delt is what you're gonna wanna train the most. And you don't need heavy dumbbells. I've got 10s here, and this could be plenty enough even for someone who's moderately strong like myself to just do your classic lateral dumbbell raise. But again, if you only have light ones, these can start to get really easy and you might be able to do a ton of reps. So a few ways that we can modify this. You've probably seen people in the gym where they lean away. This is not what you'd want to do, because this actually makes it easier at the stretch and harder at the contraction, which for hypertrophy, we want the hardest part of the lift to be when the muscle is stretched. And the goal of your lateral delt is to abduct your shoulder away. So to do that, we actually want to lean into something. So leaning into a wall, you would start down here and raise. And the key here is nice and control, going up with a full range of motion here. Another thing you could do is you could actually lie down on a bench and do this. So you could do this lying down on a bench, a couch, your bed. There's so many things you could do. But basically, we're going to lay on our side here and do that same lateral raise. But because of the way we're laying, we can get super deep and feel a nice stretch here at the bottom. And there's kind of different ways you can do this. Kind of do it angled. We can angle the bench up slightly. And then moving on from this is also a good way to train our rear delt, or the back of our shoulder. And if I lay more kind of frontwards and do more of a reverse fly motion, this is gonna shift and hit more of my rear delt instead of my lateral delt. And for the rear delt, you can also just take 2 light dumbbells and do your classic kind of bent over reverse fly. And a good cue to think while you're doing this is you want to push your arms out as far away from you as you can. So I don't know how else to explain it besides push the dumbbells as far away from you as you can, kind of like you're swimming through the water, I guess. And then if you do happen to have an adjustable bench at home, you can lean up against this and do reverse flies like this. And again, use that same cue of keeping the arms out, pushed away from you as much as possible. It's gonna put more focus on your rear delt instead of it transferring to your upper back and traps. All right, so we've covered chest pretty well, our shoulders, and all of those exercises for the most part are also gonna be hitting our triceps some. But if you want to isolate your triceps, you've got a chair, a table, any kind of flat surface, you can do some dips where we put our legs out front. And the key here is we want to sit as deep as possible. This is also going to hit our front delts and our chest plenty, especially if we get nice and deep. All right, one other way that we can make an interesting dip setup is have a chair up against a L-shaped corner of like your counter or a desk. The way you're going to do this basically is your hands are going to go on the counter, and then you're going to use your feet just to kind of support you. And then we can sit nice and deep and get some really good dips. You could do it front way, or you could also flip around and do it. And these are good because you can get a lot deeper and really hit your triceps a little bit more with a setup like this. Now, between the push-ups and the dips, you should be able to hit your triceps pretty good. But if you've got some light dumbbells, we can definitely do some single arm overhead tricep extensions. The key here is you want to get as deep of a stretch and deep flexion in your elbow. That's going to maximize hitting our triceps. If you have heavier ones, you could do both arms at the same time. Another option with dumbbells is you could do something like a dumbbell kickback. These are not really good though, because there is zero tension in the stretch here, which is again kind of what tends to show the most muscle growth. All of the weight, because of gravity, is at the contraction, which again, for general health, strength, nothing wrong with that, but it's just probably not like a top tier exercise. Now, if you've got some bands, ideally with handles, although you don't have to have one with handle, if you can put it on top of a sturdy object, you can do some tricep push downs here. Again, for pure hypertrophy, probably not the best exercise, because with bands, as we get to the top, there's very little tension here. All the tension is at the contraction. But again, for general health, muscle strength, still phenomenal. And I love using bands more as just like a general warm-up type exercise. But I think you're gonna get the most of your gains from doing our classic, push-ups and dips are gonna be better ultimately for a home setup. Now moving on to our back, and probably by far the best investment you could make for your back at home is going to be a pull-up bar. Now, I have a squat rack that has one, but I'm gonna put a picture on screen here of a pretty affordable option that you can get from Amazon of ones that clip on top of a door jamb. And these, I used to have one of these when I was younger. These are a great kind of starter option for pull-ups. Now, I was going to go outside and literally find a tree branch and also go to my local park where they have like monkey bars where I could do this. But I live in Ohio and it was literally -3 degrees outside today. So I'm not doing that. And you can use your imagination, but that would be a great other option if you don't have a pull-up bar. So pull-ups are really gonna check all your boxes when it comes to your back, probably with the exception of it's not really gonna hit your traps all that well, but lots of lats and a good amount of mid back with your rhomboids as well. Now, if pull-ups are too hard for you, this is also where some bands could be a really good investment. And what you can do is you can loop a band through, and then you would bring that band and put a knee or both knees in, and then that's gonna help you do your pull-ups. If you don't have bands, the next option would be, if you're not strong enough to do a pull-up, you're gonna just jump up and hold as long as you can. So you could hold here for a few seconds, and then control as slow as you can on the way down. And then again, jump back up for another rep, hold and control as slow on the way down. Now, being able to do just more than a few pull-ups requires a lot of strength. So there's nothing wrong with just doing lots of sets of 1 to 3 pull-ups at a time. If you train this with a lot of frequency, where you're doing this maybe even every day, you just do a few pull-ups, or every other day, something like that, you'll be surprised at how quick you can get stronger and develop strength, or where you can start doing these for several reps at a time. And on that note, when it comes to training at home, when you don't have a lot of heavy equipment to really push yourself, it's something where you might have to kind of make up for, is you might have to train with a little bit more frequency and volume to make up for that lack of being able to really train with heavy weights and go to failure all the time. Now, you probably won't have access to a setup this at home, but you might be able to get creative to set something up like this, where if you have some sort of bar or something you can hang on to, you could do inverted rows. And the lower you are, the harder this is. So because I'm nearly parallel with the ground, it makes it relatively hard to do these. And these are important because our pull-ups are gonna be covering us for our vertical pulling, which is mostly lats. But at a home gym, it's hard to do any horizontal pulling, which is important to develop our more mid and upper back as well. So if you can find a way to get creative and set something up like this would be great to do. Now, if you do have some dumbbells and a bench, you could do some bent over rows, and you don't even really need a bench. You could just stand and bend over to create a horizontal row, or lean up against anything. But the problem with these is that for most people, unless you have some moderately heavy dumbbells, you're just gonna get nowhere near to failure with these, and you're gonna be able to do just a ton of reps. All right, now what if we want to isolate the biceps? Well, pull-ups are gonna do a great job of that, but especially if we do a reverse supinated grip or a chin-up, because this is gonna put more flexion at the elbow, and you can kind of adjust your technique where you think about pulling through your biceps and your elbow rather than your back. But again, if you wanna be able to do this, you're gonna need to be pretty strong. So this also might make sense where you use like a band, or you do those controlled negatives to kind of focus on the biceps from a chin-up perspective. So this is where it makes sense to have something like some light dumbbells, because we can do our classic dumbbell curls. And if you have a adjustable bench, doing some incline curls, even better, because again, because we are adjusting gravity, we are basically putting more of a stretch at the flexed position. So think of if you've ever done a preacher curl on a preacher bench, that when you're at the bottom of that, you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like your biceps are gonna tear. That is because it is maximal tension at that stretch, and that is what we want to promote the most amount of muscle growth. Now, bonus tip, you actually can put your bench all the way flat, or maybe like one notch up from all the way flat, and do a lying curl. You're also gonna get a stretch in the shoulders from this, but again, this is putting maximal tension at the bicep, and you're gonna, one, go way lighter than you think for these, and these will make you sore the first time you do them, I promise. Now, there are a ton of different bicep variations you can do. Just your classic supinated dumbbell bicep curl is going to be great. You've got your hammer curl, which uses a more neutral grip, and this is going to hit more kind of our brachialis and brachioradialis, which is kind of more the forearm area. I would say for aesthetic purposes, I'd focus more on a supinated grip, because that's gonna hit your actual bicep more though. You can do drag curls, where you basically pull your elbows back. These are okay. These are supposed to hit kind of more like the top of the bicep, closer to the shoulder. Not like an S tier exercise, but it is an option. Reverse curls, again, kind of like a hammer curl, but going to hit even more of forearm work. But a personal favorite of mine is to you can do this on a chair, a bench, whatever you have. And it's kind of like an isolated curl, but you're gonna put your elbow here. We're gonna just do our curl, and you're gonna feel maximal stretch here at the extended part of the lift. And there's basically no weight up here, so you're gonna keep kind of a shorter range of motion. Kind of just do kind of like a half rep in that extended area. And again, these will make you really sore the first time you do them, because it is all in the stretch position. And then don't forget, if you've got some bands, especially with handles, you can step on these and do all sorts of variations with our curls as well. Now, one muscle group we didn't really cover with back is our traps. And it's gonna be hard to hit these at home, because you probably don't have heavy enough weights to do shrugs, but you might have some household items like a bucket or just anything heavy you can hold in one or even both arms, and you can just do farmer walks where you walk with it and just hold it, or of course shrugs. Now, if you've got some moderate dumbbells, you can do some things like upright rows. This is gonna hit your traps and also some of your rear and lateral delts. You could also take a band and put it around something and do face pulls with a band as well. Okay, so we've covered our upper body. Now we're gonna move on to the lower body here. And the most classic exercise is gonna be just your body weight squat. And when we do this, it might help you to counterweight, kind of put your arms out front here and focus on getting a good range of motion. Also, and this applies to any exercise, but to increase the difficulty, we can adjust the tempo. So for squats, on the way down, we can go nice and slow over maybe 2 to 3 seconds. We can pause at the bottom and sit here and then come back up. For all leg exercises, there's different ways to change our technique to focus whether we are hitting more our quads or more our glutes in our posterior chain. So for a squat, for example, for like a goblet squat, have a closer stance is gonna hit more quads, and then more knee flexion will hit more quads. So whenever I go down and my knees are getting over my toes, that means I am putting maximal flexion and work in my quads, because what the quads do is they extend your knee. So in this, I am flexed to the maximum here. So this would be a great quad focused way of squatting. But if I wanted to focus more on my glutes, I would probably take a wider stance, move my feet out a little bit, and I would sit back and push my butt way back and keep my knees behind my toes to hit more glutes. Now, there are so many variations of the squat. So with body weight stuff, we can do a lot of single leg squatting. You could do something like that, or a pistol squat where you put your leg out in front. I do not quite have the mobility to do that. You can do a split squat where you have a split stance, or you could do this with a walking lunge movement. Now, another personal favorite of mine is where you put your rear foot elevated on a bench or a chair. And this is the Bulgarian split squat. Now, again, we can make this more quad focused by having a shorter stance and driving the knee out in front of our toes, or make it more posterior chain focused by having a longer stance and kind of pushing our butt back and bending forward, but keeping our knee behind our toes. And then with any of these exercises, we can hold weight if you have some to then make it a little bit harder. Now, your hamstrings can be a tricky one to hit at home, but a great way to do this to kind of add intensity is to do a single leg exercise. So you could hold a weight or do body weight and do something like a single leg stiff leg deadlift or a single leg RDL. The goal is to get as deep into that stretch, nice and controlled, and then to use your butt to kind of flex and push forward. And if this is a bit too hard, if you go up against a wall and hold onto something for balance, that will help as well. And then for our calves, you can just use a set of stairs to do some calf raises. If this is too easy, you can go to a single leg, and then you can also hold a weight. So support yourself on one hand, hold weight in the other hand as you get stronger at this. Also, don't forget about running and especially sprinting for muscle growth. If you look at some of the top sprinters like Olympic 100-meter dash people, those guys have massive legs. So doing short, high intensity sprints is a great muscle growth thing. And especially that's gonna hit your hamstrings as well, which can be a little bit harder to hit in the gym. Now, obviously, don't forget about just your regular cardio, kind of low intensity stuff. So plenty of walking and maybe some jogs as well. But things like that kind of steady state cardio, those are good for overall health, but not necessarily going to build a bunch of muscle. And lastly, let's not forget about our core. Now, you can make an entire video on core exercises because there's so many that you can do with just your body weight. But a few staples are gonna be your classic sit-up, ideally where you can pin your feet and just focus on using your abs. And other classic exercises like your plank, where you just hold this for time. You can do it straight on, or you can do it from the side to work your obliques, or a V-up crunch, where you can also make this harder by holding weight in doing this. And then if you've got a pull-up bar, doing something like leg raises, you can do kind of a knee raise, which makes it a little bit easier, or a leg raise. So now that we've laid everything out, let's put this all together. I'm gonna give you guys a sample home workout. Now, this is gonna be 2 different workouts, and this is a full body workout that if we wanted, we could then split up to do more days if we wanted. So Day one here, we've got our push-ups that we can then change with any of the variations we talked about to increase the intensity. Tricep dips, dumbbell lateral delt raises, pull-ups, dumbbell curls for the biceps, goblet squats, holding a weight with that close stance squat, the Bulgarian split squats with more of a glute emphasis where we have that longer stance, some single leg RDLs or single leg stiff leg deadlift, calf raises, and then finally sit-ups. Now with this being a full body exercise, this is something we're gonna wanna do at least every other day. At a minimum, we want a 1 day of rest in between. You wouldn't wanna do a full body split like this and work out every single day. As far as our sets go, you can go anywhere from 2 to 4 sets per exercise, but 3 would be a good place to start. For the rep range, probably gonna wanna stay between that 10 to 30 range. And if you're doing any sets above 30, again, that's probably not the best for muscle growth. It's gonna be more of an endurance standpoint. Now under the pull-ups here, you'll see this thing called 2 RIR. What that means is 2 reps in reserve. So that just means you're trying to go until you could only do 2 more reps. Because again, we want to train close to failure, but we don't have to train completely to failure where we literally can't do another rep. As far as resting goes, just rest at least 60 seconds, but I would say 1 to 2 minutes or even 3 minutes is totally fine. For the sake of time, you could superset these and pair opposite muscles with each other. So example, you could pair a chest with back, triceps with biceps, quads with hamstrings, etc. Because that way, while your muscles are recovering from the one set, you are then going right into the next one. It will be a little bit difficult from a cardio perspective, but it will not hurt you in terms of muscle growth. And then day 2, we've just got some slightly different versions of all of these same exercises. So we've got a feet elevated push-up. We've got the dumbbell single arm overhead extension. We got the leaning lateral delt raise for our shoulders, chin-ups instead of pull-ups, incline DB curls, a wide stance dumbbell squat, single leg squat, again, single leg RDL just because it's kind of hard to hit hamstrings at home. Otherwise, calf raises and then some leg raises for calves. And if you want to work out more than just like 2 to 3 times a week, what you could do then is you could split these into upper lower days. So you could do these first 5 exercises at day 1, these next 5 as day 2, day 3 is the first 5 upper body ones here, and then day 4 there. Also, I wanted to cover what would be the most important gym equipment items to get kind of in order. So I would say number 1 is gonna be a pull-up bar, because having a pull-up bar will really like unlock so many options for training your back, because it's just really hard to train your back at home without any equipment at all. Next is gonna be just some light dumbbells, maybe up to 10, 25 pounds can get you a really far way, because then you can use those to train some of those smaller muscle groups like your shoulders, triceps, biceps, and also to hold them during leg exercises. I would say resistance bands are also an okay option, but I would rather say light dumbbells would be, you're just gonna get more out of them instead. After that would be a adjustable bench, one that you can sit up and incline at different angles, because again, we can use it for a lot of different options in training our arms, just many different, using it for rowing. If you already have light dumbbells and a bench, it would be then to get some heavier dumbbells. And this is a solid investment, but this is hands down what I would recommend, and this is what I have personally in my gym. These are called power blocks, not sponsored by any of them or anything. These are adjustable and they go up to 50 pounds, but you can buy extenders that make them go up to then 70 and then up to 90 pounds. So I have mine that go all the way up to 90 pounds, which is 90% of the time, that is all I need. And basically you just select your weight and you slide it in and out, and it goes up in 10-pound increments, but you can actually adjust by 2.5-pound increments here. If you look at the picture right here, these little bars, each of these bars are 2.5 pounds. So you can take those in and out as well. So this gives you 2.5-pound increments all the way from, I think, 10 or 15 as the lightest, all the way up to 50, 70, and then 90 if you keep adding on. And then after that, if you're gonna continue to add on to your home gym, it would be things like a barbell and a squat rack would be next. We didn't talk about those in today's video, but once you have a barbell with some weights and stuff, you can do like 95% of what you need to do in a gym. You're just not gonna have the luxury of having all the special unique machines, but you can do anything you need to with a barbell, basically. All right, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave some comments on some future topics you'd like to see me cover. And if you want more health and fitness tips, make sure to subscribe, leave a like. I appreciate you guys. We'll see you in the next one.